Hey y'all, I'm Dr. Lucretia Cook, but you can call me Dr. Lala. Welcome back to another episode of the Re3Volve Podcast, where grief and loss are a journey and not a final destination. So today I would like to talk about self-compassion. I know, self-compassion. I know. But I think it's something that's important and something we should talk about as we go through these seasons of transition, of grief and loss. Because oftentimes we're our own worst critics. We are so hard on ourselves. And so let's talk about it. Because self compassion isn't weakness, it's not indulgence, it's not selfish. It's not. But for a lot of folks, society has taught them that it is. Self compassion is actually a radical act of healing, especially for people who've been conditioned to be strong, to be self sacrificing, or emotionally silent. Yeah, for folks who've been conditioned in that way, self compassion is a radical act. And it's something that feels unfamiliar. It almost feels wrong. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Because this episode is about reclaiming your humanity and honoring your healing journey. Because again, a lot of times we're our own harshest critics. And we hold ourselves to standards that are nearly impossible. More often than not, you allow other people to be human, but don't give yourself the same grace. How many have been guilty of that? I'll be honest and say I have. I've been guilty of that. Giving others grace that I don't give myself. But self-compassion is the practice of making room for your own humanity, your limits, your emotions, your imperfections, and sometimes the need to pivot. It's a healing posture, not a performance. And there are lots of misconceptions about what self-compassion is. Because again, some people think it's selfish. Because people raised in environments that praise strength and sacrifice and emotional suppression often misunderstand self-compassion as selfishness. They may see themselves as weak because you were taught to push through, be strong, don't be a burden. Right? You're not trying hard enough. And because these are things that have been taught and learned and embodied, it's hard to show yourself grace. It's hard to be gentle with yourselves. It feels wrong. It feels like you're doing something that you shouldn't do. When in actuality, self-compassion should be the standard. It's not about lowering the bar for yourself. It's really about releasing yourself from all that pressure. So that you're not setting these standards for yourself that are unrealistic. Because a lot of times, these are things that we put on ourselves. And sometimes, along with that, we experience shame and guilt. And when you're experiencing shame and guilt, it makes you feel as though the self-compassion is undeserved. And you say things like, I should have known better. Or I should have done more. I don't deserve to rest. Or this is my fault. I caused this. Or things like other people have it worse. There's somebody who's doing worse than I am. But y'all listen. We all struggling. We all are. Everybody's struggling with something. And the truth is, this is not the struggle Olympics. They ain't giving out prizes. They are not. We all struggling. And just because my struggle isn't your struggle and your struggle isn't my struggle doesn't make them less important. It doesn't make one more important than the other. Because something that's big to me might be minimal to you. But the thing that's minimal to me might make your world come tumbling down. We're all built different and we all have different life experiences. But we're all going through something, y'all. But with shame and guilt, it makes us feel as though you have to earn kindness, that you don't deserve gentleness. Sometimes shame and guilt cause us to carry responsibilities that were never ours to carry. To carry responsibility for things that were never even in our control. But because of the way we see ourselves, we blame ourselves for things that we had no control over. And then you have people who feel guilty for needing rest, who believe that having opportunities to experience softness is indulgent. And these beliefs make self-compassion feel dangerous, like it's wrong, like we shouldn't be doing it. Or if I have compassion for myself, I'm going to cause trouble for myself. But those thoughts are rooted in internalized pressures. These are things that we put on ourselves because oftentimes we set standards for ourselves that are unrealistic. And I'm not saying don't set goals. I'm not saying don't have standards. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying be realistic about what your capacity is in this season of life. Because that thing that you were able to do 6 months ago with your eyes, with the blindfold on and your hands tied behind your back, you were able to do it then with no trouble. Trying to do it today, you might need Google Maps And that's okay. But be realistic about what you can handle, about what you can manage, what your capacity is. Because that's not to say that you won't ever be able to get back there. But it's okay to be where you are and to be gentle with yourself. Because all of that negativity, none of it is rooted in the truth. None of it. That's guilt and shame talking. So what does having self-compassion look like in real life? Speaking kindly to yourself. Not beating yourself up because you didn't get it all right all the time. Allowing yourself to rest without guilt. Taking that 15-minute nap if you need it. Allowing yourself to feel how you feel. Acknowledging that it's okay to not be okay. Not forcing yourself to be productive. The dishes can wait. It'll be okay if you don't make the bed this morning. Celebrating the small steps that you take, because every step forward counts. This doesn't have to be some giant grand gesture. It doesn't. It's a daily effort. Daily. Softening your inner voice to yourself. Stop talking so rough to yourself. Yeah. There's enough going on outside of you without you beating yourself up internally. Right? Release that pressure of having to perform, of being Miss Perfect all the time. Because you don't have to be perfect all the time. Just keep showing up for yourself. Because, baby, I promise, if you're looking at me for perfection, you're going to be disappointed every time. Every time. And just doing these small things helps you to create emotional safety within yourself. Now, just think about that for a minute. Some of us have to learn how to be emotionally safe with ourselves. Wow. And just thinking about that, saying that out loud, having to learn to be emotionally safe with yourself. Stop pointing out all your flaws. Stop trying to identify every single thing you've ever done wrong in life. Stop beating yourself up about mistakes you made 10 years ago. Yeah, create a safe space for yourself within yourself. Because there's enough negativity going on in the world around you without you planting a garden of negativity within yourself. Yeah, be gentle with yourself. And scripture gives us a foundation for compassion, especially God's compassion towards us. It reveals his posture towards the hurting, gentle, merciful, compassionate. Lamentations 3, verses 22 and 23 tell us that his mercies are new every morning. Every morning they're new. In Psalms 34 and 18, it reads that the Lord is close to the brokenhearted. He doesn't shame us for having broken hearts. He actually draws near to us. And if you read a little further, it even goes on to say that he mends our wounds. So there's no reason to be ashamed. And in Isaiah 42 and 3, it reads, a bruised reed he will not break. He's not looking to hurt the hurting. It's not his goal to break you. He protects us. And then in Matthew 22 and 39, it says to love your neighbor as yourself. So he commands us to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. And so the implication there is that we should have self-love and self-compassion. Because if you love your neighbor as yourself, then you're going to love yourself as you would love your neighbor. But how many folks are guilty of being able to love their neighbors and show their neighbors compassion, but then not able to do the same for yourself? So let's just sit with that for just a second. Love your neighbor as yourself. Take a moment to consider why that might be hard for you to love your neighbor as yourself. Why is it so easy for you to love them, but not yourself? It's just a little something to think about because God models compassion. And then he invites us to extend it inward, to show ourselves. And then, as always, therapy. Therapy can play a role in helping us to practice self-compassion, because it helps us to uncover the roots of perfectionism and shame and self-criticism. Because, yeah, you know you do it, but why? Where did that come from? It helps people to identify those voices that demand you perform and reject softness and vulnerability. Who told you that? It teaches people how to speak to themselves. It teaches people how to show themselves the same grace that they so freely give to everybody else. In therapy is where you can learn to build emotional safety from the inside out. That's where we can learn that. And so, what are some things that we can use? What are some tools that we can learn to cultivate self-compassion? Because self-compassion grows with practice. So we can do things like affirmations. They help us reshape internal narratives. Journaling gives us a safe space for honesty. Because some of us have a hard time with being honest with ourselves. Here we can learn how rest is a spiritual discipline. There are many areas in Scripture where He encourages us to come to Him, and He will give us rest. In therapy, we learn how to name our emotions with honesty. And that's where we're able to reduce shame, because we learn to talk about it without shame. In therapy is where we can learn how to create routines and rhythms that help us to create stability. Because it helps when you have a rhythm and you're not functioning in chaos. Just these few things can help you to build a compassionate relationship with yourself. Because it's so easy to be compassionate with everybody else. But what about you? And so as we close, let's reflect on what self-compassion means for you in this season. What does self-compassion look like? Identify an area where you've been hard on yourself. And then I want you to soften your inner voice and allow yourself to be human. You don't have to be perfect, but keep showing up. Show up for yourself like you show up for everybody else. Showing yourself compassion isn't selfish. It's not indulgent. Self-compassion is a part of the healing journey. And you owe it to yourself to be kind to yourself. Because like I said, there's enough going on in the outside world without you bringing it into the inside, right? There's enough going on. So be gentle with yourself and show yourself the compassion that you show everybody else. So until next time, keep choosing healing, keep choosing joy. I love y'all. Bye.